Britain's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has reshuffled his cabinet, sacking Home Secretary Suella Braverman and replacing her with James Cleverly, while former Prime Minister David Cameron entered the Foreign Office in an unexpected return to government. Suella Braverman was sacked over her comments on pro-Palestine protests in London. She has also quoted controversy for saying homelessness is a lifestyle choice. This is the second time that Braverman has lost her job in the government in just over a year. Last year, she was dropped by then Prime Minister Liz Truss.
Thanks so much for coming.
It's been a morning of hectic developments at 10 Downing Street. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, buckling under pressure, sacked his Home Secretary Suella Braverman. The decision was triggered by Braverman's article slamming police action, accusing the London police of double standards and criticising pro-Palestine demonstrators, calling them hate marchers. Her comments were seen to instigate right-wing protesters to take to the streets, forcing Sunak to act. Braverman's sacking was clearly the highlight, but not the only decision taken by the UK Prime Minister today. As part of his cabinet rejig, Sunak replaced Braverman with James Cleverly, and in a surprise move, former UK Prime Minister David Cameron returned to the government as the new Foreign Secretary. Cameron had been out of the government after he resigned post losing the 2016 Brexit referendum. Indian origin UK politician Suella Braverman is not new to controversies. She's been sacked as the Home Secretary for the second time now. Last year, she was removed by then Prime Minister Liz Truss over a security breach involving a government document. She's also grabbed headlines for her comments on migrants, saying asylum seekers in the UK pretend to be gay for special treatment. She's also faced heat for calling migrants coming to UK an invasion. In her first response, Suella Braverman has said that serving as the UK Home Secretary was a great privilege, adding that she will have more to say in due course. Bureau Report, NDTV.
And Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met the newly appointed Secretary of External Affairs there, Mr. Cameron. As Jaishankar tweeted, and I quote him, "A pleasure to meet UK Foreign Secretary David Cameron this afternoon on his first day in office. Congratulated him on his appointment. Held a detailed discussion on realizing the full potential of our strategic partnership. Look forward to working with him closely." And let me bring in my guests now. Joe Johnson is member of the House of Lords of the United Kingdom. We have Nicholas Nugent, UK journalist and former BBC editor. Lord Johnson, I'm going to begin with you. I mean, she was grabbing headlines for her provocative comments. Many would see this as something that the UK Prime Minister knew when he appointed her in the first place. Would you say that the criticism against pro-Palestinian marches became the final nail in this coffin?
She had clearly become more of a liability than an asset to Rishi Sunak's government, hence the decision to remove her today. She had become an increasingly divisive figure who appeared to be intent on positioning herself for a future Conservative leadership contest more than focusing on the operational duties she had the duties she had as Home Secretary.
Had she become too much of an embarrassment? Lord Rummy Ranger, member of House of Lords, is also joining us.
Hello. Thank you very much for inviting me. First of all, I think it's wonderful that David Cameron is back, because David Cameron has a gravitas internationally. He knows all the world leaders. He's very close to Prime Minister Modi. It will be good news for all around. Coming back to Suella Braverman, Rishi has demonstrated that he is a very strong leader. He listened to the public opinion and he reacted. And this is another thing, as Lord Johnson has just said, because in politics you have to work as a team. It's a collective responsibility. Nobody should take decision on their own, because they represent the government, which is the government is a member of so many cabinet members. So therefore, whatever has happened, Rishi, what he has done is demonstrated that he is not going to take no nonsense from anybody. He will listen to the people, public opinion, and he will act accordingly.
Okay, why do you say public opinion here, Lord Ranger?
Because Suella made a few comments. Number one, as you know, about the hate march. The other one was the people who sleep rough, that it was out of their choice. Then there was, one or two other things. And this did go down very well with the public. And there was a hue and cry of public opinion against her. And that's what led to her downfall.
Okay.
But, David Cameron will bring great relationship with Europe because he was a pro-European. Our relationship with Europe will improve. Our relationship with globally will improve. And the election chances are improved because David Cameron won 2 elections on the row. He's very popular with the grassroots, and Rishi has a great ally because he has been the one who said, in my lifetime, you'll see an Indian Prime Minister. We are not only seeing an Indian Prime Minister, but he's also supporting and working with the Indian Prime Minister. So it's a great day for British democracy, where a former Prime Minister has lent his hand to stabilize the government and bring strength to the international diplomacy. So I think it's a win-win situation.
While I'll talk about David Cameron and his new role in Rishi Sunak's cabinet in just a bit, but Nicholas, it also reflects poorly on the Prime Minister about the choice of his cabinet in the first place. If someone had been dropped by his predecessor only because she was controversial in nature and many saw her comments offensive, then Rishi Sunak appointing her in the first place would be seen as wrong choice of having given her such an important portfolio.
Well, firstly, you're squeezing me between 2 very eminent members of the House of Lords representing the Conservative Party. Let me try and give a different perspective, though I have to say I largely agree with what they're saying. In answer to your question, I think she got the job because she backed Rishi for leadership at the last minute. That's why it was a reward for loyalty, which is what matters in the higher echelons of party politics in Britain. She lost the job because of her increasing disloyalty towards Rishi Sunak, notably by refusing to revise a text she had published in the Times just a few days ago. But as for public opinion, I rather agree with Lord Ranger about this, because I would say fundamentally, she has lost public support because she's shown herself not to be a humanitarian. We can talk about her attitude towards the boat people. She really was hostile towards people arriving in small boats, many of whom were fleeing persecution, but she didn't show any sympathy for them at all. And even that line you quoted earlier about her saying some of them are pretending to be gay to get asylum. No sympathy whatsoever. And then this week, this criticism of the police for whom she's responsible, saying they're biased. Her lack of humanity towards the Palestinian situation, that was how her comments were interpreted. And indeed, this remark about homeless people it's a lifestyle choice. So I would say that fundamentally she lost the post because of her lack of humanitarianism, and she had become a liability in that regard. And if I may just add my own comment about the appointment of Lord Cameron to be Foreign Secretary, I think that's absolutely inspired, because the British people like somebody in that role who has stature and indeed knows world leaders. And Lord Cameron fits both those categories. And I might also add that strengthening relations with both India and China was a strong part of his premiership. So I think in India, you should be quite pleased. I'm remembering it's exactly a year ago on Diwali last year that Rishi Sunak came to office. And now on Diwali this year, you're getting a former Prime Minister as Foreign Secretary, which I think is a very bold and courageous move.
I remember doing that story in my previous job, Nicholas, where we broke that story of Rishi Sunak becoming Prime Minister, and it indeed was a Diwali day. Lord Johnson, again, while we look at the reshuffle that has happened, it is also clear strategic move on part of Rishi Sunak, in which he understands that, yes, the exit of Suella Braverman will be discussed, but the entry is equally influential, and for David Cameron to to agree to be working with Rishi Sunak will be seen as a huge strategic move on his part.
Agreed. I strongly support what Rami Ranger and Nicholas Nugent have been saying. David Cameron's return is hugely to be welcomed. He brings back real experience to the cabinet, a wealth of relations around the world, and as Nicholas just said, he's a strong advocate of closer ties with India. It remains to be seen whether the golden era with China will form part of his renewed brief. I suspect things have changed a little bit in terms of how he sees that particular bilateral relationship. But certainly with India, an important focus for him in his new job. And I was very struck that it would seem that his first meeting in his new role was with, as you said, with your foreign minister, the Indian foreign minister, Mr. Jaishankar. So a great start to the UK-India relationship on day one of his new job.
And Lord Johnson, was there some kind of internal concerns as well, domestic concerns or party concerns for Rishi Sunak when he went in for sacking of Suella Braverman?
Look, I mean, we're 12 months out from a general election in the UK. Rishi Sunak wants to present the strongest possible look to the country. He had a real opportunity to do something striking with this reshuffle. You have very few big chances left as Prime Minister when you're this close to a general election to have some impact and to cut through to the electorate. And I think the appointment of David Cameron has a chance of signalling to those who voted Conservative in 2019 and in 2017 and in 2015 that they might again think about backing the party next time. I still think it's a huge mountain for the Conservatives to climb, but David Cameron's return is a good start in that difficult journey.
Okay. Lord Rami Ranger, would you say that politically speaking, is it end of road after she was dropped? Previously, again, she has been, dropped from the cabinet. This is a clear signal of what is going wrong in her public conduct.
I think for the time being, it's the end of the road. And just to echo Lord Johnson's view on David Cameron is a hugely charismatic figure, popular across the board, even with the Labour supporter. He brings enormous talent, enormous energy. I have worked with David Cameron for nearly 10 years. He is the first Prime Minister who reflected diversity in his cabinet. He's a very, very pragmatic, futuristic, visionary leader. He will bring enormous strength to the party, and the next election is now certain to be for Conservative Party. And I thank my panelist, Mr. Nugent, for articulating views so eloquently that, the downfall of Suella Braverman was her own making. So therefore, I think very excited that David Cameron is back. We got two Prime Ministers now for the price of one. We will be now surging ahead. New energy has gone through the rank and file of the Conservative members, and I'm very much looking forward to working and to bringing home the next victory for Rishi Sunak and combined effort with David Cameron and all the other team. And of course, my colleague Joe Johnson will also play a very important role.
Just enough time for Nicholas Nugent. You have got compliments from both the sides, Nicholas, as a journalist there, analysing the developments that have happened. But politically speaking, of course, you are saying that it was her own making. That's the reason perhaps this exit is being seen. But she would have her own supporters, particularly the radicals or very, very conservative hardliners who we have seen, who were all vociferous supporters of hers.
Well, indeed. And I think the other two panelists know better how the Conservative Party works. But it certainly looks as if she is making her bid to be the successor to Rishi Sunak should Rishi Sunak lose the election next year. She has a lot of support within the party, the so-called right wing of the party. I personally don't know how extensive that is, but she's got followers. So it's possible she'll be back, but it's equally possible that the Conservatives will be out of power for some time. So She could be back. She could become leader of the Conservative Party in opposition. But I suspect that her days at the top in a governmental post are probably over. But we mustn't write her off. She has a strong following. She has some influence, but it won't be exercised through government for the foreseeable future.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Lord Rummy Ranger, Lord Johnson, and Nicholas Nugent, breaking that story for us, explaining the developments that have happened in UK in the last few hours.